Okay, so get this. We're diving deep today into California landlord-tenant law, like the big changes that just happened January 1st, 2025. We've got like articles and legal summaries and even a YouTube video all about it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? All these new laws seem like a big shift. More focus on tenants' rights, trying to even things out a bit.
Totally. I mean, California used to be like landlord central, right? So by the end of this deep dive, you'll know exactly what these changes mean for you, whether you rent or are thinking about renting or just, want to be in the legal loop.
Yeah, and I think you'll find some of this stuff pretty surprising, like even if you've been renting in California forever.
Let's start with something I know everyone who's ever rented has worried about: eviction. Like in California, it's officially unlawful detainer. And it used to be like this scary thing, 5 days to respond to a notice and you're scrambling to find a lawyer, figure out what to do.
Yeah, it definitely put tenants in a tough spot. But one of the biggest changes is they're giving tenants more time, like double the time to respond to that unlawful detainer notice. 10 court days plus another 5 if they got it in the mail.
So full 15 court days, which I guess means weekdays when the court's open. But what does that extra time actually mean for tenants who are facing eviction?
Well, it's not just about having more time to breathe, though that's obviously important. One legal summary we read actually said this could change the whole power dynamic in eviction cases. Imagine instead of freaking out, you have 15 days to actually understand the notice. Maybe even talk to your landlord or get a lawyer.
It's like the law is saying, hey, let's try to work this out before we kick someone out of their home.
Exactly. That extra time can be huge.
Wait, now another thing that's a pain for renters. Application fees. You're looking for an apartment and every place wants a fee and you feel like you're just throwing money away with each rejection.
Oh, totally. California was like the Wild West for application fees. But these 2025 changes put some serious limits on what landlords can charge.
So no more of that crazy thing where you're spending like hundreds of dollars just to apply for places.
That's the idea. Landlords can only charge a fee if the unit is actually available. Or if it's going to be available very soon, they can't just collect fees just in case. And here's the big thing. They have to tell you the screening criteria up front.
So you know what they're looking for, what could disqualify you, before you even give them money. That's smart.
And it gets better. Okay, so let's say they pick the first applicant who meets all the criteria. Everyone else who also qualified, even if they weren't the first, they get their money back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why keep the money as someone who would have been just as good if they'd applied a day earlier?
Right. And there's another scenario where the landlord wants to be picky. Like they collect a bunch of applications before deciding. So in that case, anyone who doesn't get chosen gets a refund, even if they didn't meet all the criteria.
It's like the law is saying, hey, you want to hold a beauty pageant for tenants? Fine. But you got to pay everyone who doesn't get the crown.
That's a good way to put it. It's really a big win for tenants. It makes the whole process more transparent and fair.
Okay, so another thing that's always stressful for both tenants and landlords, security deposits. Like you always hear these horror stories about landlords taking tons of money out of deposits for weird reasons.
Yeah, and it always comes down to he said, she said, with no way to prove what the apartment actually looked like when you moved in. But that's where the 2025 changes get interesting. It's all about the photos now.
Like landlords have to take pictures.
Yep. It's like CSI. Apartment landlords have to provide photos if they want to take anything out of your deposit. They have to take photos of the condition after you move out and after any repairs or cleaning they do.
So no more trying to remember if that stain was there when you moved in. You've got the photos.
Exactly. And starting July 1st of this year, landlords will also have to take pictures before a new tenant moves in. So you have a whole visual record from move in to move out. So no one can mess around with the security deposit.
I love this. It keeps everyone honest and should stop those arguments when you're moving out.
And it protects both sides. The tenant knows they won't get blamed for stuff they didn't do, and the landlord has proof if there is damage beyond just normal wear and tear. So we've been talking about how these new laws are good for tenants, but there's one change that's kind of interesting because it could actually be good for both sides, renters and landlords. Let's talk about credit reporting for rent payments.
Oh yeah, this is a big one. Like you pay your credit card on time, your car payment, all that, and it helps your credit score. But rent, that's always been like the big missing piece.
Right, you're paying all this money every month showing you're responsible, but it doesn't count towards your credit score. Well, California decided to change that. Now, landlords have to offer tenants the option to have their on-time rent payments reported to the credit bureaus.
So paying your rent on time could actually boost your credit score. That's huge.
Yeah.
Especially for like younger people or people who are new to building credit.
It really is. It means responsible tenants can use their rent payments to their advantage. maybe get a better loan, lower interest rates, even qualify for nicer apartments in the future.
I'm seeing a trend here. More time to respond to evictions, fairer application fees, proof for security deposit deductions. And now this. It feels like California is finally getting serious about tenants' rights.
For sure. And while this is definitely a win for tenants, I think it can also be good for landlords in the long run.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. If tenants know their on-time payments are being reported, they're going to be more motivated to pay their rent on time. It could mean fewer late payments, more reliable tenants.
Okay, yeah, I see what you mean. It's like a built-in reason for tenants to stay on top of things. But are there any catches? There always seem to be catches.
Well, there are a few things. First, landlords can charge a small fee for this service, up to $10 a month.
That seems fair if it means you're building your credit. What else?
And there are exemptions for smaller landlords. If they own 15 units or less and it's not owned by a corporation, like a REIT or LLC, they don't have to offer the credit reporting.
Interesting. So it's targeting those bigger landlords, the ones who are more likely to have the resources to set this up. But wait, what if a landlord owns like 3 small buildings, each with just a few units?
Good question. So in that case, even if each building is less than 15 units, they still have to offer the credit reporting because they own multiple properties.
So it's about making sure that a lot of the rental market is participating in this change.
Exactly. And while we're talking about catches or things to watch out for, let's talk about those annoying junk fees that sometimes show up in leases.
Oh yeah, those hidden costs of renting. Did the 2025 changes do anything about those?
Yep. Landlords can't charge extra fees just because you pay rent with a personal check anymore.
Seriously? People still do that. It's 2025.
You'd be surprised. But at least California is putting a stop to it. And there's another change that specifically helps service members.
Oh, what about them?
If a service member had to pay extra fees because of their rental history in the past, but then they pay rent on time for 6 months, they can actually get those extra fees back.
That's pretty cool. Everyone deserves a chance to prove they're reliable, especially people who might have had unusual circumstances because of serving in the military.
It's a small change, but it shows they're thinking about the challenges service members face and trying to make sure they're treated fairly.
Okay, so we've seen changes that help tenants, changes that help both tenants and landlords. But what about the landlords themselves? How are they feeling about all this?
Well, it's mixed. Some landlords are worried about the extra time tenants have to respond to evictions. They think it could drag things out, make them lose more rent, make it harder to get rid of bad tenants.
Yeah, I can see that. If you have a tenant who's not paying or trashing the place, that extra time could cost you money.
It's a valid concern, but the other side of that is that extra time could give tenants a chance to catch up on rent, find a new place, or even fix the problems that got them in trouble in the first place.
True. It's not always black and white. Sometimes people just need a chance to get things right.
Exactly. And that's something that gets lost sometimes in these conversations. These changes aren't about punishing landlords. It's about finding a balance that protects everyone's rights and encourages fairness and communication.
Speaking of balance, the new rules about application fees actually seem like they could make things easier for landlords in some ways.
Yeah. By making landlords tell applicants the screening criteria right away, it sets clear expectations from the beginning, so they might get fewer unqualified applicants, which saves them time and hassle.
And those refund rules encourage them to make decisions faster, to pick the best applicant they have instead of waiting for the perfect one. It could make the whole process smoother.
Definitely. It pushes landlords to move quickly and pick the best candidate they have.
The photo evidence thing for security deposits also seems like a win-win. Clear documentation, less arguing, everyone's happy.
It's all about transparency and accountability, which really benefits everyone. The tenant knows exactly what they're being charged for. The landlord has proof to back it up.
So even though some landlords might not be thrilled about these changes at first, they could actually make renting more transparent, more efficient, and ultimately fairer for everyone.
I think that's right. It's about adapting to the new rules and doing things in a way that's good for both sides.
Okay, but let's get real for a second. Like, how does all this actually play out in real life?
Yeah.
Take these laws and imagine them actually happening.
I like that. Yeah, it's one thing to read the law, but it's another to see how it affects real people, like both tenants and landlords.
Right. So let's say you're a tenant and you just got one of those 60-day no-fault eviction notices. In the past, you'd probably freak out, feel like you had to move out right away, even if you didn't have anywhere to go.
Yeah, it was a tough situation for a lot of tenants, but now with that extra time to respond, remember 15 court days, it gives you options.
So instead of panicking, you can take a breath, maybe talk to a lawyer, see if you can work something out with your landlord. Or even just start looking for a new place without feeling so rushed.
It's about giving tenants a chance to make a plan, instead of feeling like they have no choice.
Now let's look at it from the landlord's side. Imagine you've had some bad experiences with the tenants in the past, late rent payments, damage to the property, maybe even had to evict someone. You'd probably be hesitant to rent to someone with bad credit or a messy rental history.
Of course. You want to protect your property. Make sure you're renting to responsible people. That's where this new credit reporting thing comes in. It can actually be good for both sides.
Yeah. Responsible tenants can show they're reliable, and landlords have more info to make good decisions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
By giving tenants the option to have their on-time rent payments reported, you're not just helping them build credit, you're also giving them a reason to pay on time.
And don't forget those new rules about photos for security deposit deductions. I think that's going to change everything.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It takes away so much of the uncertainty and arguments about security deposits.
Imagine this. You're a landlord. The tenant moves out, and there's some damage. You need to take money from the deposit. In the past, it would turn into a big fight. No one could prove who did what.
But now you've got the pictures. You've got photos from before they moved in, after they moved out, and after any repairs or cleaning. It's all documented. No more arguing.
No more trying to remember what the place looked like months ago. It's all right there in the pictures.
It protects everyone. The tenant can't say they didn't do it, and the landlord can't charge for things without proof.
These examples really show how these changes will actually affect people. It's not just about legal stuff. It's about real people, real situations, and making the whole system more fair.
And that's what's so important about these new laws. They're a sign that things are changing. They show that California is starting to take tenants' rights more seriously.
It's like they're finally realizing that having a place to live is a basic need, not just a business.
Exactly. But even though these changes are good, it's important to remember they're not perfect. There will still be problems, arguments, situations where people need help to understand the law.
That's true. Laws are important. But in the end, it's up to people to talk to each other, to know their rights and responsibilities, and to get help when they need it. Knowing what's going on is super important, especially when it comes to legal stuff.
Couldn't agree more. That's what we're all about, right? Giving people information, helping them understand their options, and fighting for a system that's fair for everyone.
Well said. I think we've given everyone a lot to think about today. We've gone over those big changes to California's landlord-tenant laws, talked about how they affect both tenants and landlords, and even looked at some real-life examples so you can see how it all works.
We covered a ton, but the most important thing I hope everyone remembers is this. Stay informed. These new laws are a big deal, so make sure you know how they affect you, whether you're a tenant or a landlord.
Absolutely. Keep learning, stay involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. And that's a wrap for this deep dive into California's new landlord-tenant laws.
Call now 714-442-9741. Thank you.